Hello. Yeah. Hello, sir. I'm Rishab, and along with Arushi and Himanshu, we are presenting our course project on the nature of memory in the large language models. So, we together choose to reproduce this particular paper that how linearly associative are memories in large language models. So let's understand first the motivation behind this particular paper. So we all know that LLM stores fact. For example, if I query that what is the capital of French, then it will give me Paris. But where this particular fact is stored inside the LLM, whether it is a database or it's something a high dimensional map, we don't know. So this particular paper investigate the structure of that particular storage. Is it a database or it is something like a high dimensional mathematical map? So according to some research and to understand this, we need to look into the feed-forward neural network inside the transformer. So we know inside the transformer we have certain feed-forward neural network. So there are two ways to view this. The very first way is the key value memory, that is where the input acts like a database key to select a particular value. And the second way or the second view is the linear associative memory. This is the view we are testing, that is it suggests that a second matrix acts as a dense memory storage. So what I'm talking about, let me understand. That means the second matrix or inside the FFN stores the memory, and the key is the way to retrieve those values. For example, if I go into the background, okay, so I have certain key values pair. So key is the query and v is the value that I'm getting. For example, if I'm querying the capital of French, that is my key, the French is my key, and my value is is Paris. Okay, that is something I wanted to achieve. So the weight matrix inside the FFN is stored as a key value pair. So I'm just making a matrix k1 vi transpose. It's a matrix basically, and this is the weight matrix. Now if I want to retrieve, for example, the particular value corresponding to the key kj, so I should get the value vj. So if I query that my if for corresponding to the value of km, I should get vm. So it would make like vi ki transpose km. So for all I which is not equal to m, my ki transpose km will be 0 if my ki is orthogonal to km, and for I equal to m, it will give me 1 since it is orthonormal, and also I'm getting the corresponding value vm. So what does it mean? That means if all the keys are orthogonal to each other, then I can easily retrieve the memory from the weight matrix. That is the idea. So uh, that is the idea, but we want to test if all the keys are orthogonal or there is some crosstalk in between the keys. Okay, for example, if I'm checking for facts, for example, if I have query for apple, then I can then the value may be a fruit or a mobile phone that we have a company. So there may be some crosstalk in between the keys, so the keys may not be highly orthogonal to each other. So we want to test whether there is a high crosstalk in between the factual keys and or not. There is the key motivation behind this particular paper, and the orthogonality between two keys is easily measured using this cosine formula, that is ki transpose ki upon the magnitude. So it will give me the angles in degree. If my theta is close to 90 degree, that means the keys are highly orthogonal, and if it is not, then the keys are not orthogonal. So in each layer, so basically let's understand the whole architecture inside FFN. In each layer inside FFN, we have two weight matrices, W1, W2. So basically H is the token, the raw input token that I'm giving. For example, if I query the capital of French, so the capital of French is my raw input token, which is H. Yeah. So it will pass through two layers, W1, W2. So F H of W1 transpose, this is the value after I'm passing this particular token after W1, and also after the activation function F. So this particular thing is the actual key, yeah, which is querying the for the corresponding value of Paris inside W2. So this is my key, and this is my query matrix. So we can see X is the scales the rows of W2 and can be interpreted as a vector of keys. So H is my row token, and F of H of W1 transpose is my key. So we want to test in our experimental setup, in our experiment, that whether this F of H1 HW1 transpose for every H, whether they are orthogonal for the factual things or not. That is the key motivation. Okay, so LM views treat X, the input to the second MLP matrix, as the high dimensional key, and we want to test if those keys are orthogonal to each other or not. So to test this in LLM model, basically we are taking three LLM models, that is GPT-2XL, Llama 2, and Pythia 410M. So we are taking three models because we want to testing all the models, so that we can generalize the idea, and it's not specific to a particular model. And also we are taking two texts. One is the randomly text from Wikipedia, and the factual text is taken from counterfeit dataset. So let's understand the data set that we have for the, so the very first is the models. We have three models, GPT, Llama and Pythia. And so for each model, what we want to test, we want to first check the orthogonality in between tokens, the row token, that is h. So f1 input is the h. So first we will check the orthogonality in between those particular tokens, and next we will check the orthogonality in between the key, that is second MLP output, which is fh of 8 W1 transpose. So first we will check this and check this. So what we were expecting, that there is low orthogonality in between the input tokens, and there is a high, and there will be high orthogonality in between the keys token that is being given after we are passing the token after W1. So the data set for this will be used for as like this. So the very first is the random Wikipedia token. So we are extracting 10,000 paragraph of length more than 100 from the Wikipedia, and next is the counter subject fact tokens. So this is the so this contains triples of subject, relation and object. For example, France, capital, Paris. So my subject is France, the relation is capital, and object is in Paris. So we want to check the corresponding keys for the subject are orthogonal or not in case of counterfeit subject tokens. And here for each paragraph I will take a random token, and so we have 10,000 tokens for 10,000 paragraph that I have extracted, and I will check the orthogonality in between those tokens. So what is my expectation, that the orthogonality in between the keys of the random tokens for the Wikipedia will be high as compared to that of the subject tokens. Why? Because the random tokens are quite apart in the state space basically, as compared to the subject tokens, because the factual keys may have some crosstalk, may have some correlation with each other, but that is not the case for the random tokens. So the probability of them being less orthogonal is very less. So we are calculating the angles by this formula. It's quite intuitive. Okay, so let's go towards the implementation details. So I will first go through the, so I have three notebooks for the three models. The very first is the GPT, the second is the Pythia, and third is the Llama model. So we have tested this for three models. Let's discuss this for any one model, that is the GPT-2. So the very first implementation is defining the modular prop. So basically in each model we have several layers. For example, if you have 20 layers, then I should insert hooks. So what are hooks? Basically hooks are the checkpoints. So I want to check the activation, the vector, the raw input vector is h, and the key, that is the vector which is being given after I am passing the row token, after W1 matrix that we have defined. So we have two, one is f1 input, which is the raw token x, and for the second MLB input I am defining another hook which is capturing the actual keys. Okay, so for each of the layer I am defining that. So first I will register the hook. So for each of the layer, for example, if my model is GPT-2, I will first register the hook 1 and hook 2. Hook 1 is before the W1 matrix, and hook 2 is after the W1 matrix. Okay, so this is my key, and this is my row token. Yeah, for each of the layer in that particular model I am extracting. And this particular get activation, so it will trigger whenever I am giving an input data. It will trigger and it will extract the activation, for that particular layer, and the two hooks. So basically the value corresponding to the two hooks is being captured and stored in this dictionary basically. So I have so here I have all the activation value, all the basically vector value of each of the row token and the key vector. Excuse me. So next is now we are testing it in two dataset as we have discussed. The very first is the Wikipedia dataset, and the next is the counterfeit dataset. For the Wikipedia dataset, what we are doing, so we are first tokenizing the text using the tokens. Okay, we are first tokenizing text within the tokens, and we are extracting a random index from that particular text, and that is my target index. So basically I will check the orthogonality in case of Wikipedia on this particular target index. Next, for the counterfeit, so in the counterfeit thing, so I am extracting the item basically, and for that item I am extracting the subject and a prompt template. So and a full prompt. Let's understand these three lines with an example. For example, if my subject is let's say French, my prompt template is the capital of a bracket is that is my prompt template. The capital of bracket is, so the full prompt will be the capital of France is what. So my full prompt in that case is capital of France is what, and my subject is basically French. Okay, so I know my target index is not random. In case of Wikipedia, I can easily select a random token from that pair of more than 100 word basically, and I can assign that particular thing as an a target index. But in case of counterfeit data set, we know that the factual subject is my key value that I want to test on the orthogonality basically. So we want to find the we want to locate the position of this particular token of subject, let's say France, in the full prompt, that is the capital of France is. Okay, so I can't say directly that my index is the capital of France, that is a 3 in case of the template, because if you tokenize it, the index may change. So for that we have this which is find. So it will basically start from the last, and it will match the tokens of the subject and the target and the full prompt, and once it get it will return me the index. So basically I have the match index that I have got the index of the subject in the full prompt. So in the samples I'm appending the input IDs, that is the input token, the capital of France for example, and target index is my France. So this is the sample. So I'm at the end I'm returning samples, the sample each of the structure of input and target index of 10,000 samples each. So in paper also they have taken 10,000 samples, so that is something we have. Okay, so this is the dataset collection. In case of the third function, which is the collect vector, so here I will give the model tokenize and all these things basically. So what happens, the samples that we have here, okay, for example in case of Wikipedia or counterfeit, I have the samples that is input in the target word. I will extract the input and model index. So I will give the input to the model input means they run the model with this particular input. For example, if I give the input to target the capital of French, I will just give this particular prompt to the model, and for each of the layer I will take the FF1 input, the raw tokens, and the second MLP input. Basically for each of the layer I am extracting the raw tokens before W1 matrix and the second MLP matrix. So the layer second appending the vector, and in case of layer FFN appending the vector. At the end I am returning this storage, which is basically a multi-dimensional map which is for each of the layer it will have two vectors, FFN and second, the raw token and the key value for example. Yeah, and this is the simple function which will just count the pairwise angle. For example, the number of pairs is 10,000. So I have a vector, a list of vectors. For example, I have I will select two random vectors. I will just calculate the orthogonality in between them, and then I will append it, and at the end I will just return the mean and the standard deviation among the angles. There is a simple thing. For 10,000 samples I am randomly selecting two vectors, and then I am just calculating the orthogonality in between them. So we have the GPU, the collab GPU. So first we are testing it on a GPT-2 XL model. This is the number of layers for GPT-2 XL, 48, and we are loading the model, and we are registering the hooks. Okay, so hooks are being registered for each of the model. We have two hooks for each layer. One is the FFN hook, and other is the hook after the second MLP matrix. First we are extracting the vectors. First we are extracting the 10,000 vectors for what? For the Wikipedia text. For the Wikipedia I have a text, input text and random token which is being there in between the text. So I have those things. So basically I'm getting the vectors from the Wikipedia dataset. So I have ran this 10,000. So we have 10,000 pair of more than 100 length basically. And second is the counterfeit dataset. I'm extracting the CF vectors basically. So I'm getting, so basically for this particular model for 10,000 samples I'm getting the Wikipedia vectors, and I'm getting the counterfeit vectors. Now I want to test the orthogonality in between them. This is the orthogonality. So basically now what I'm doing, for each layer I will store the mean angle and the standard deviation. Okay, for wiki FFN mean GPT, it implies the feed forward neural network in the each well, the row tokens, those for those means for each of the layer, and the standard deviation for that particular for each of the layer. So similarly for each layer I will calculate the second MLP output, the key values for Wikipedia and CF. For CF and Wikipedia I can easily extract those things, and I will compute the I'll compute the pairwise angle. I will take the mean and the standard deviation for each of the layer. So for each of the layer I will just calculate this. The very first result is for the FFN input, the row token that I'm giving into the GPT model. So we can see that in the initial layer the orthogonality in between the tokens is very low, which is expected, and as it is increasing, the orthogonality is increasing because the weight matrix is trying to shift that particular key and move orthogonal to each other. That is something we have. So this graph is expected. In the initial layers with the orthogonality is very low. In the later layers the orthogonality is very high. In case of the second MLP input for the Wikipedia, that I'm extracting the keys after the input tokens, the raw tokens having passed through the W1 matrix basically. So we can see with layers the orthogonality is increasing and it's almost 90. So we can see that for random words, for random text, in case of Wikipedia, the orthogonality is very high in between the keys that we are taking as random words, which is expected. That is something we have. But in case of the counterfact fact, where the keys are not random, the keys are the actual subjects that we're talking about, we can see that from the initial layer to the final layer, there is not much improvement in the orthogonality. It is almost like around 80 degree. It is highly orthogonal. Basically, it is orthogonal, not very much, but this so with the number of layers, we expected to grow it and approach 90, but it's not. With this implies high crosstalk in between the keys. That is the implication that so let me just, so this is the overall implementation. Let me go towards the results and findings basically. Yeah, the way, so let me go through the GPT results. So as we have discussed, this particular thing is the raw tokens. So in the initial layer there is a high crosstalk, there is no orthogonality in between the key tokens, but with later layer it increasing. In case of random words, the orthogonality is increasing with respect to layers, which is expected, and it reaches 90 degree. And for the counterfact subject token, which is not random words, the orthogonality is not very high as compared to the Wikipedia tokens basically after the second MLP matrix, and it's around an 80 degree. So what does it imply? It implies that a subject token from counterfact will consistently show the lower angles that we have, lower angles around 80 degree. This suggests that the factual memories are clustered in a representative space. Multiple facts about the similar objects and subjects use overlapping keys that we have discussed. For example, for the same key apple, I can have multiple values, a fruit or a company or something else. So due to that, there is a high crosstalk in between the keys, and that is something we have we have found in in contrast of the Wikipedia random tokens. Yeah, so this is the finding that the overall finding is that for the Wikipedia random tokens, the keys are highly orthogonal, but in case of the subject tokens, the factual tokens with the factual keys, I would say the keys are not very much high orthogonal, and we can see some crosstalk in between them due to the fact that you have discussed already. So there's one important thing, that the graph we have found is almost similar to the graph given in the paper. This is the actual paper. So here we can see the graph for the GPT. The graphs are almost similar, implying that the implementation of ours is very close to that of the actual paper. And similarly, we have graph and similar results for Llama and Python models. So we have tested this for 3 models, and we are getting almost same results. That is for factual tokens, there is a high crosstalk as compared to the Wikipedia random tokens. So what are the resource constraints? So let's understand the limitation in our implementation. Okay, so in the actual paper, they have used 6.9 billion parameter Python model, but in our case we are taking a minimized model of Python 410M, because the Kaggle GPU is not able to handle, the VRAM is not able to handle this such large model. And also we do not perform the explicit knowledge editing to directly correlate the statistic with the behavioral changes basically. And also we are only testing it in case of paper. If I see as a whole, we are testing only in the Wikipedia and a counterfact token basically. So other domains like code and mathematics may show them different patterns. It is something like more linguistic, but if I just change it to code and some other mathematical terms, it may change. So so in the conclusion, we can conclude that the keys after the raw tokens, after the keys that you are finding after inserting the raw token after the first W1 matrix are orthogonal to each other. And if you compare the orthogonality in between the those particular keys, if in case of Wikipedia and counterfact, there is a high crosstalk for counterfact as compared to Wikipedia, because the keys for the same key we have multiple values that you've discussed. So that is the whole conclusion, and yeah, and these are the references. So thank you.